Node.js Build Working Group meeting for July 7th, 2020. We didn't have too many issues. Well, we had 0 issues that were automatically tagged for the agenda based on the tags in the issue, but we've thrown on a few agenda items. One is to sort of talk about what some of our biggest concerns are. Johan had a chat with Brian in terms of there's an issue opened about getting some feedback for the Linux IT team. So he has an update for us on that. And then also the roundtable of just kind of talking about what's new since last time sounds like a good idea to round it out. So in terms of aligning on the biggest concerns, does somebody want to start on that one?
Yeah, I can chip in. So I used to be very active in the build group a few years back. Life came in between, but I'm starting to find my way back. And I guess I've since reached out to a few of the team just to kind of try to get an idea about what are our concerns now. I've spent a considerable amount of time in the Node.js issues. And it seems to be that the general idea, at least, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but perhaps that Jenkins and the ecosystem of tests are not, that we're not very responsive. Perhaps that's an incorrect assumption, but I guess what I'm saying is that it would be very interesting, since I've been a bit away, to hear what are generally seen as the big problems we have with the software and the hardware maintaining for the Node.js group, I guess. One of the areas I was looking at is that would be a quick win, is obviously adding monitoring to this. I can elaborate a bit more on that, but I'll just leave the mic out for others to add.
I'll just add a few things of context. So downloads are broken. So that's something I know Ashley's working on. So that's certainly one of the concerns in terms of download statistics. We had asked the board to help get additional members, help us with build resources, because we felt we were kind of below critical mass. Particularly some of the things driving that are, I think, what you mentioned in terms of some of the responsiveness in terms of when things go wrong for the collaborators. And so part of what we'd already discussed, and it was the feedback on the meeting with the Linux IT that we mentioned, was the feedback from the board so far was they were going to encourage some of their people to join, and actually John's a result of that, but also that it might be easier to try and fund people or fund some work. And so that was one thing that we were also looking at parallel. We'd had a discussion where, like, as an initial scope of what we thought might make sense on that front was the care and feeding of Jenkins. So if machines go offline, sometimes it just takes somebody to go in and restart the agent, the security upgrades on Jenkins. So sort of things that were like routine maintenance that needed a timely response and weren't necessarily like a great fit for volunteers, right? Because like the volunteer will get to it when they get to it, but if the CI is broken or not working because the Jenkins agents are offline for a few days, that's not a great experience. So that's kind of why we homed in on that as an area that maybe it was something we could get somebody external to help out with. In terms of other major concerns, I don't know if these are concerns, but there's been a bunch of work around the OSX infrastructure, which Ashley has helped out on in terms of moving from one infrastructure to another at Mac Stadium. So anyway, that's what comes to my mind. I'll let everybody else chime in now too in terms of other things.
So yeah, just to reiterate on Michael's point, I think the biggest issues I've seen faced would have been the ones when infra machines went down. So, because obviously the access is heavily restricted, so I definitely think that the monitoring work is very important there, because those machines are very critical. So if we can at least tell they're going to blow up before they blow up and give us a bit of warning, I definitely think that will make the experience a lot better.
I don't know, Rich, did you have any other things that I didn't cover in terms of the main things getting in the way of collaborators?
No, I was gonna emphasize and repeat some of the things you said, and I realized that that's totally unnecessary.
No, it helps to add that it's coming from a couple different viewpoints, but
yeah, just yeah, machines going down is a bigger problem than tests failing, of course. Access is restricted on the machines. Like right now, Ben Nordhaus just, not half hour ago, but in the last 12 hours, so wants to, debug something on a Raspberry Pi, and maybe he'll, sort through how to get that done with Ansible and the secrets repository and so on and so forth, and maybe not. We'll see. And monitoring would just be huge. It's especially a lot of times it's hard for people who aren't familiar with how the machines are administered to figure out what's going on when a machine goes down, or a machine. And the thing is, they never, of course, go down, right? It's like the file system fills up or something that and in the past, I would say we've had significant problems with the machines that are very vendor specific. Not so much with IBM's machines; they've been really good. But previously SmartOS has been a problem, but it's been really stable lately. I don't know what's happened there. That's changed because it doesn't seem like there's more resources poured into it. But it's been very stable. And the thing that is perpetually a problem in the build working group and in the wider Node project is that we don't have enough Windows expertise. When Windows machines go down, or when there's a problem with Windows, you hope that Joao or Bartos is around to figure out what's going on, is my experience.
Right. Yeah. So I guess on the monitoring side, because I walked through most of our machines, just logged in and had a look, and I think there are a few gradients. Like I think we pretty quickly can achieve a quick win in monitoring. What I basically did was I set up a Grafana, which is like a way to visualize data. I coupled it with Influx, which is a easy way to save data, and basically installed like a small monitor that collects information about each host that it's installed on, or you can configure it to do things. But I guess what I'm saying is that in 30 minutes, I pretty much was monitoring the core servers that we have up and running. So we can, for instance, set up alerting on 75% disk space use, specific things stopping to work, network spikes, whatever. I guess what I want to achieve is like a red-green dashboard for the build team to quickly say, I need to do something or I don't need to do something, and kind of make it like a safe space where we can rely on it for knowing if the ecosystem works or not. The challenge to me really comes in the gradient of things. As you say, Rich, it's like a machine will not go down. A machine will become like processes will perhaps not exit, leading to file descriptors eating up things that ultimately makes it equally frustrating to run a test suite because it's not going to pass or go through at all or stall, which lead to cascades, right? So I think one challenge we have in the monitor landscape is really to define like how can we collect when things aren't working as intended. And that's really where I would really like, to get help, I guess, put it more simply, because I don't have that full view. So I think what I'm doing right now is basically setting it up and making it accessible for the entire build team to create dashboards or whatever we want. The second part is that since the Telegraph, as it's called, the monitor agent is written in Go, we can send it to a lot of our operating systems, albeit SmartOS or AIX, I guess. But there's a lot of quick wins there. But I think for it to become really reliable, we need to get that extra mile in terms of what do we define as a problem or not. And the good thing is that it's pretty simple to write custom plugins that would collect information about processes and stuff. But yeah, that would be amazing to get your collaboration on that. Another thing I added to it was because I've started to look at the log processing thing as well. I don't know if you've noticed, but we have occasionally, more occasionally than not, I would say, issues with the load balancer in Cloudflare. You would get these 8-10 emails in a row saying that one node is down and then the pull is down and then it comes up and down. The good thing is that it doesn't lead to a downtime from a client point of view, because the distribution of traffic goes to our backup and unencrypted host, where we host a mirror of this stuff. But you know, it would be nice to understand why this is happening. And last time it happened on Sunday, I actually used this Grafana setup to get a better understanding. And basically, what we're seeing is that we're getting too much spike traffic on like a lot of misses, and we're not able to be like, our disk is basically too slow, which leads to too many file handles for Nginx, and then doesn't respond. But I guess my point is, I'm gonna add like things from Cloudflare that also can tell us like the overall health there. But I think for it to become really good, we should like collaborate and think about like what's the problems we are seeing, or the users, you know, in PRs seeing, and how can we measure whether or not that is working as intended, and then just put it on a dashboard. So that's kind of how I'm thinking we should go. Sorry.
That raises one other, I think, of the bigger concerns that we should keep in mind too, is that I think we need better documentation coverage for a number of the components like the website. And you know, there's a lot going on those, and I don't know that there's a good place for somebody to go and come up to speed. So like, you have a lot of the history, so you can very easily go in there and know what you can touch, not touch. And so working to make sure we have that documented, and that, you know, you pass on some of that knowledge would actually be a really good win as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think Rod and me, I still have to start getting back into it, but
yeah, I don't think
a lot of information there.
Yeah, I don't think that a lot of things, like certainly on the website side, or even the Jenkins setup, has changed substantially since they were set up. So have we lost Johan or me?
Johan's voice did break up a bit.
Okay, it just looks like he's still talking.
Yeah. Oh, dropped and came back.
We'll just wait a second here. Are you back, Joanne?
Yeah, just dropped for a second. Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Okay.
Zoom just restarted. Yeah, I was saying that I think there is a bit of opportunity in perhaps rethinking a few of the things we are doing as well. As we know, how we publish the website, how we store our distribution files, in terms of, you know, how the current architecture works. So I guess what I'm saying is that there could be like two parallel efforts. One is making sure that it is well known how to interact with the current system. But the second parallel, for instance, with download that I've been looking at, is like just using an S3 style or GCS for storing these files, which is, you know, already a replicated distributed network of HTTP servers. So I think, you know, that could be one interesting way of also getting more people involved and helping design a new system, and then we can focus on the migration.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And it can document it as part of that as well. So.
Right.
Okay, on that front, is there more that you think we should discuss this meeting, or what the next steps?
Yeah, I can sneak into the Brian call. I mean, it covers a lot of what we said. There's overlap here, but I think especially in the front of getting help with the Jenkins ecosystem, I had because as you guys know, perhaps I've been storing the logs from Cloudflare on my account, and I didn't think it was very suitable that like I was the owner of that information. So we have begun a transfer of ownership to the foundation. So that's on the way. But in parallel to that, you know, we talked a bit about specifically the Jenkins concerns in preparation of our build meeting, and there is other similar efforts like ongoing inside of the foundation, whereas they're looking at, you know, if there are shared resources that can help out with managing Jenkins. What I said and what we should like cover again with him as the build group is that I'm not sure if for us necessarily master or for instance our release is the maintenance burden. The maintenance burden for us likely being in the plethora of nodes in various configurations in various different operating systems at various clouds, and even, you know, physical hardware. And there is an interesting challenge in how do we hook people into that. But the goal of having people assigned being responsible is obviously a great change from where we are now. So that would be really good to make progress on.
Right. Yeah. Like I agree with you that it's the whole. If we had a, yeah, it's not just managing Jenkins. We're just looking in when we put that together. It was what is something like a self-contained piece of maintenance work that the build working group members don't necessarily want to do, right? Or isn't fun or interesting to do, as something that could go in. So like you said, the node, keeping the nodes up is definitely one of the issues. And then sort of that leaks into the Jenkins side of things where they're, you know, if something's offline, you know, somebody could go and look and figure it out. Well, is it because Jenkins or the node or whatever? So, but yeah, I mean, a little more history, I think, has been shared through email. But like, you know, the you know, exploring can we have some extra resources? We did go and talk to one extra organization, and the numbers that came back at least started the thinking process for me is like whether it was feasible for one project versus, you know, on the foundation level. Like if the foundation was providing help to multiple projects, that might be more feasible than if you're just trying to do it for one, because there's sort of a minimum, probably a minimum cost to getting the, you know, what we were asking for, I think was like a 4-hour turnaround or something like that, or like, you know, 5 days a week even, but even just being able to do that, because we thought that was kind of the minimum to improve over the current situation, which is, well, the volunteer will get to it. And, you know, if you can wait a few days, the volunteers, us as volunteers actually probably already do that. So there's basically a minimum cost to get there. And so that, yeah, that started some discussion like, well, maybe it's something that, you know, if it needs to be done for other OpenJS projects, there's some synergy there.
Yeah, no, I would love to have that kind of commitment in the loop, and then how we use it. Like I think, for instance, like a collaborative build group effort on monitoring, and then hooking on resources that looks at this monitoring, putting it simply, is obviously a great way to optimize that type of structure.
Right.
So that could be a way. Right.
For me, it's that kind of help should be around the stuff that isn't necessarily a good fit with the volunteer time. You know, needs a response quickly, but the deciding what the monitoring should be and helping to build that out, you know, that's not something that we have to do within a 4-hour window. So the people on this team should be driving that, and then getting the help to actually monitor it so that you can respond quickly is the part where we'd want the help. Okay, so yeah, I haven't checked today whether there's progress on scheduling that, but it sounds like we've got a good number of people who are interested to participate, so that's good.
Yeah, I think he said he would reach out and at least schedule something this week. So let's say within 2 weeks we can remind him again.
Yeah.
But he already named like two people he had in mind, like inside the org that was more technical, that could like help us think about these things.
Okay.
And as part of that, also the due diligence, as you said, would probably be very.
Just taking a quick note here on. Okay, anything more questions, people, things we should discuss on that one before we move to the next one? No, okay. So then the next was kind of the roundtable in terms of what's new since last time. Why don't I can just sort of ask people in the rotation of that I see them here on the screen, if that's okay. Okay, Richard, you're top of my list then here.
Okay. When was last time?
Yeah, I think you can be fairly liberal because we haven't actually gotten together for a while and talked. So
that's true. I've been mainly spending my time trying to get another IBM platform into the CI. So I've been working on the IBM I platform. I've got hosts Ansible in, and we started off running libuv jobs. So we actually are building libuv on IBM I, and I have a job to build Node. That's in the CI, but it's not hooked up to anything yet. I have put we have an issue in the build repo to add IBM I, so I did put an update in there saying if there were no objections, I'm intending to hook that up to the daily builds next week. We kind of feel the builds are a bit too slow to put in the regular CIs that run on every PR, but we feel that it should be good enough to go on a daily. Be run on a daily basis, and we've got people both working in build and working on the IBM I platform who will be monitoring those builds and making sure they are looked after. Hopefully should stay green and not be an issue to most people.
okay, sounds good. I'll switch to the list of the people in the minutes since that works. So Rich.
Working on some small things that I guess are sort of build related. There's that bug I alluded to earlier with opening a file on the Raspberry Pi devices in CI. Keeps the event loop open if you don't explicitly close it, which isn't true on any other platform. And I suspect this has something to do with the fact that the Raspberry Pis run on an NFS mounted file system. And it's unclear to me if this is expected behavior or a bug in Node/libuv. I was looking into it, and then Ben volunteered to look into it, so now I'm hoping he does it. Because he'll probably figure it out in about a 1/10 of the time that I would, and I won't have to ask him any questions if he just does it. Anyway, I also opened a in the process of debugging the test that was flaky that caused me to open that bug in the first place. I realized that I had thought that in CI we had set things so that Node debug environment variable was set so that we could use debug log instead of console log in a few places. That's wrong. What's that, Richard?
Yeah, we didn't make that change as far as I know. No jobs have that set.
Yeah, so I opened a pull request for that. Anna doesn't like it. I expect a lot of people to not like it. But what came out of it was that maybe the same way the pull request job has a subtask, or the node test commit one of them has a subtask for running all the tests through worker in a worker threads worker. You have a similar one that runs it with node debug set, so that at least we could confirm that running it with that set doesn't break tests. And then I don't know. This might just be overcomplicating things. We might just want to stick with console log everywhere. The more I talk about it, that's the more the conclusion I'm coming to.
What about running, like, we don't need to do that on all platforms, do we?
Well, yeah, we do. I mean, like if you want to debug on like I want to debug on Raspberry Pi, so I want it set on Raspberry Pi. You know? Like I want to see what the
right.
debug
Okay.
output
So,
is on Raspberry Pi.
so
and
it's
then I
not
want to
something...
compare it to where it's working. I want to see that it's the same order or it's different order. You know, things like that.
Okay, so
yeah,
you
I want to be able to turn it on everywhere. But yeah, we can just run it in one place, just like we do with workers, and just like we do with the nightly job with internet and benchmark and one of the other.
Right. Okay. So the thought about having a switch is because you want to turn it on for debugging through the CI.
Right, and I can fake it, but yeah, there are ways to get around it but kind of like the same way we trick the stress tester to run things in parallel, because if you just run it normally, it just runs the test 100 times, but I want to run it 100 times concurrently. So
right.
So you know, there are probably ways to trick it into doing that, maybe, but it would be great if there was a job where you could just, you know, here's the job that I kick off to see debug output. Unfortunately, the debug output is usually most helpful with unreliable tests, which might be hard to, you know, so it gets complicated fast. But anyway, been looking and thinking about that. And then another thing that's kind of on the back burner for me, but that Matthias Marchini is working on and I'm not, but except for cheering him on, but that people here should be aware of is he's looking at using GitHub Actions to try again to create a commit queue, which I think is a fantastic idea. So you might want to take a look at that if you haven't seen it. He's got a pull request or something somewhere where he's developing this. But I think the idea is that it would check Jenkins results and then run it, rebase against master, run it through GitHub Actions, and if the actions all pass, go ahead and land the thing.
Yeah, I think it was something like you could maybe apply a tag to PR.
So Johan and Michael probably remember
yes.
5 years ago. Gosh, what was his name? I can't even remember his name. Orange Mocha.
Yeah.
Was his GitHub handle. Oh, I'm sorry, Orange Mocha. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. But he implemented a Jenkins commit queue, and it blew up because Jenkins was so unreliable at the time. And then people just, you know, nobody wanted to go near that for like 5 years now. So part of the reason why I've kind of been not focusing on tests for a while, and in the last month or two, I've sort of begun to pay attention to Node Daily Master again in a way that maybe I hadn't in a while. And it's because I really want the test to be reliable when Matthias finally gets the commit queue happening, because I really want a commit queue.
Right.
So anyway, that's my long-winded 3 items.
Daily Master was yellow for 3 days over the weekend.
What's that?
Daily Master was yellow for 3 days over the weekend.
I know.
It was red again this morning, but
yeah. Well, I read again 3 times this morning because I fixed some things and then reran it to see if I could get it green. But it's yeah. Now it's failing because of a Windows test, which I'm going to take a look at later today after dinner or something. Anyway.
Okay, Johan.
I already started writing a bit, helping you guys. So first of all, good to be back. Starting to find my time again. So the first thing I did that kind of pulled me in, I think, was we saw that the Jenkins host CI was full. Had a quick look, and the issue was basically that our backup job and the purge, meaning assumes an exit 0 for it to continue to do its job, which so the problem was actually with backups, but it led to ultimately the job cleaning not being done. I still have so I did a bit of work in the backup section. I still have some pending work there. Actually, a big deal we have in front of us is the fact that our backup host is painfully close to full, and it runs SmartOS, a version which we chose because ZFS, but now seems to have limits in the data centers, meaning we have to redeploy it. So that's something I'm kind of looking forward to. So I'll probably create an issue about that. The idea is actually to move out of SmartOS, just stick with Debian or Ubuntu there and just go with a bigger host. My third thing was that I started looking at monitoring. For now, can I share the screen? I was thinking perhaps I can just show what's going on.
You should be able to.
Let me try. I just gotta make sure that I don't have all the windows running. So share screen, desktop 1. Yeah, let's do desktop 1. Okay, can we see this?
Yep.
Okay, great. So 3 screens for now. First of all, just in the internal stats of Influx. So basically, I did it for 2 reasons. First, just to play around and learn. Second is just to see how the database is acting. But the idea is to create similar boxes as you see here to your left in terms of the different hosts we have and their importance. The second dashboard we have is the system health, which is basically just your average, status of the hosts. And then we can choose the host. So right now I'm monitoring CI, CI release, GitHub bot, metrics, and www. Obviously what's missing here is backup, but seeing how we run on SmartOS, we can't really collect that information with Telegraph. So I think we're gonna have to redeploy for that. But the good thing here is that we collect and have a retention period of 60 days. So for instance, instead of using last 1 hour, we can say last, let's say 7 days. And we can kind of get an idea of what's going on. So the idea here is to have a status of a trend. So if we see that, if disk is 75, we don't have to send an alert every day, but just to quickly show that, our disk is past the threshold, or perhaps that the reads are growing over time, right? So here we can, for instance, see the issue we had over the weekend, which was 7.3. Let's see, sorry. Here, for instance, you can see here we had a huge IPv6 traffic spike, which led to some other issues. The third thing we have right now is the Nginx view. So Nginx just shows all the hosts we have Nginx on, so we can see our current web hosts. We can see CI and CI release. This is also a good way to kind of just look at what's going on, especially if we're having issues. But the interesting part here really comes in alerting. So alerting is a view where we're gonna create alerts, and then we can choose the channel. So if we want to send it to Slack, IRC, email, text, through PagerDuty, up to us. But the idea is that the more data we collect from each host and different types of data, we can then just take this, create alerts on it, and be reactive instead of passive when it comes to issues. I'm gonna stop sharing now, unless there's any questions about this.
No questions other than, wow, thank you, this is awesome, and when can we get access?
Okay, so I created an issue about, because there is a, similar to how we do in Jenkins, there is a plugin that allows us to express the ACL we have in GitHub straight onto Grafana. So optimally, I would like to have like a dashboard that is actually public view, and then one that is org view, and then into build where we have the different user levels represented. So in the build team, we can probably allow everyone to create their own dashboards, and then we can choose which ones we want to expose for what team. So that's kind of the idea I had. And I think that will allow us, everyone that's a member, to like think about what is monitoring to me, what problem did I have, how can I express that in a number or a measurement, and then kind of help us get that going.
Right, so basically we got to get the okay to grant the Grafana dashboards at the level of privileges, which it sounds like you think is simply just a read of the organization data, right?
Yeah, you create an OAuth client in the organization, and then you assign the client a set of rights. So read email, read org, I would guess. And then you basically take that client ID and secret you get from OAuth and then pass it back with a callback URL.
What issue is that? We should just throw that into the, do you have that handy? Let's see.
I think I sent the link to the documentation in Grafana as well, but that's where we're heading. Then after that, I played around. So I was looking at the log stuff and I got a bit frustrated, not really seeing what the issue was. And I think Ash was waiting for Miles to step in. So I thought about it like from a different point of view. Is there any other way we can do this as well? And I think just in like looking at everything at the same time and understanding that, you know, by improving our cache, we can actually improve a lot of the issues that we've been having with resiliency for downloads and website. I came up with an idea where there's a pretty modern concept called, you know, serverless functions. In Cloudflare, which is our provider, they have this edge. So we can basically process each download as async request if we want to. So what I did was build a small prototype that basically sends the analytics to Influx. So we can actually have like a live view on download data in Influx. I'm not suggesting that we're going to replace the log parsing because I think logs are extremely important. But what it gives us is a reactive way to look at bursts. So for instance, the issue we had Sunday, we could have seen by having looking at the data from Cloudflare. So what I'm thinking here is that we create a thing that basically helps us to see all the data live in terms of downloads and to be able to react on it as a build team if there are issues. The second opportunity with this is that it actually gives us a bit of abuse insight. So I found that there was a few offending IPs that was very aggressively downloading. I'm not sure how to handle this, but it's good to know that it's there. And that there's something that at least if we're gonna be responsible out of infra, something we need to consider. So for instance, what we could do, and I'm just thinking out loud, is that if we see a spike from an IP, we can actually set a rate limit to that IP in the Cloudflare firewall as like an alert like reaction. So small things we can do if these are the types of issues we're going to be seeing more of in the future.
I think that leads into a good aspect of like what should be our expectations in terms of like there's been discussion around like when it was down, like people are like, oh wait a sec, it's down, I can't get my production workflows going. If we're going to do things like rate limiting, we should probably like clarify the expectations. It's like, hey, it's okay to download here, but you should be caching or you should be doing whatever, right? So.
Yeah. Okay, I forget. I actually did another thing as well because I was inspecting the log analytics from Cloudflare, and around 16 million requests a day from us are 301s and 302s. I created an issue about it. I had it open for a few days and then closed it because I was implementing it and just wanted to share what I did. So I'm now handling a lot of redirects at Edge. We are now at roughly 99.1% cache hit ratio at Cloudflare. But still, it hurts a lot when we have a miss. The way we built our caching system is basically circling around 4 hours as like a time to live. This can be improved a lot. I have a lot of ideas that I think even outsiders as a way to invite people into our collaboration can work on. I think we can, for instance, cache our SHA-SUNs and version logs in their cloud in the KV store at the edges. So that way we push to update. We don't have to think about expiry. And also the issue I opened about splitting downloads into a different subdomain means that we can actually redirect all that traffic to, for instance, GCS should we want to. So I think there's a lot of small tweaks we can do to at least take all the heat out of our infrastructure when it comes to managing traffic. Right now, I think we are, I'm not sure if that's like officially in official numbers, but I think it's fine. We're around 100, let's say between 100 and 200 terabytes a month download at Edge, which is, it's not too much, but it is a number that we at some point we're going to have to think about from an infrastructure point of view. So that's also something I've been looking at.
So from the Edge, I mean, what are you thinking about on that front? Like we need to do something to reduce that or manage it better, or what's the?
No, okay, good question. We want it to grow, of course. Like,
right.
we want all the traffic in the world,
Yeah.
but we want to be able to steer that traffic into either more resiliency that we ourselves set up, or a static model where, for instance, the S3 style of storage offered by Amazon or Google is basically just taking the problem away from us. The challenges that we are facing as a result is obviously thinking about our release model, thinking about when do we have to bake a release twice, which shouldn't happen, but it does happen. We need to think about how we generate dist files, how we store them, and then based on that, we can set a lifetime expiry if we are at a confidence level where, like for instance, we could have a staging area where we deploy everything to, and then we have a manual release process if that's what we want. There's different ways of attacking it, but I kind of wanted to open the door by saying, let's start with splitting the website with downloads, because those are two different problems to solve. And website should, in the website, we should open up for the website team to have even more diversity in how they want to build the site. I'm sure they have a million ideas they want to implement, but they could be bottlenecked by the way we build our site.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've been experimenting with the whole other set of tools on the Node.js.dev site. So you're right.
That's a different group. That's not even the same group of people. So
exactly.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think I understand what you're saying now. It's not about managing the download, but managing the content so that it facilitates that download.
Yeah, both resiliency and availability. But also, like previously, we had issues with DigitalOcean's firewalls not really liking our bursts because of the 4-hour rule. If you make, I mean, we can make that 6 hours, we make it 12, but at the end of the day, I think we need to kind of look at it a bit differently.
Okay, I guess Ash, you're next.
Yeah, so like Richard said, it's been a while since we've had one. So big things I've done is set up the Orca environment. So for those that don't know, this is Mac Stadium's brand new Mac virtualization offering, which is orchestration with Kubernetes on Apple, I think it is. So basically they've given us 3 Mac Pros, which then act as a Kubernetes cluster, which we can then spawn full weight Mac VMs on top of. So we currently run 3 1015 test machines and a 1015 release machine, and then 3 1014 machines. And there's loads of room left, so I do plan to add more machines, try and add some 1013 ones, because I've changed the minimum deployment target to 1013 for master. So it would be good to have some of those in. As part of that, I've been migrating off of the old vSphere thing. So I had an email from Rod last week. Mac Stadium have given us a hard deadline for this. So end of the month, those machines go, that hardware's gone. So I've started removing those from CI. The OSX 1011 machines are now gone from CI. I'm waiting for the next 10 release, which is Richard is handling, to make sure nothing goes wrong, which it shouldn't, because I've moved the release. Yeah, I've moved the release sources off of for 10.x off of OSX as well onto CentOS, so that's the same across all release lines. So hopefully they'll be gone. Those should be done, well, hopefully before the end of the month. And then the other thing is doing the download metrics. So the moment currently facing an issue where we have the code, it creates a read stream off of the file that's triggered when the log file is uploaded. But when that read stream ends and pipes into the write stream, the read stream sends a close signal to Google Cloud. So the function just stops before it writes the file. So I've been working with Beth with that today and still don't seem to be making any inroads. I've had some input from Miles. I am about this close from just rewriting it in Python, just because I think it will work better. just something to look at, something different, but that's where that is at the moment. So it's like 95% there, and it's just the stream's letting me down at the moment. And yeah, that's my update.
Okay, John.
Yeah,
So nothing specific to Node, but I did want to mention from Electron's perspective, we're looking into supporting the new Apple Silicon. And I've done some initial testing on hooking in some theoretical new hardware into GitHub Actions and Azure DevOps. It seems that the compatibility layer, I think they call it Rosetta 2, will allow those agents to run. So that's good. I don't know about Jenkins, but I'd venture to guess that Jenkins agents probably would also run on that hardware.
I mean, they need Java, so as long as
yeah.
Java runs, they'll run.
Yeah. So
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, myself, nothing too interesting, mostly talking with, Ash, Richard, and Sam before he left on the stuff they were working on. And I've had a bit of back and forth with on the build resources front with the foundation team, just, helping to put together that outline of what a first scope might be. And, we interacted with one external company and sort of trying to push that thing forward. Okay, so that's the end of what we thought we'd add to the agenda. Is there anything that people have thought of while we've been talking that would be worthwhile talking about before we close out?
You go, Richard.
I was just idly wondering, there was a status page that somebody volunteered to set up for us when we had the last set of outages. And I was wondering whether it made sense to hook anything from the monitoring things that are being worked on into that. Maybe we could feed something directly into that status page, or even replace it completely. Because as far as I know, it's up and running, but I don't think any of us are really looking at it or even have access to it to post the alerts that page was supposed to host in the event of something going down.
Yeah, that's a great point. I saw that. I wasn't sure how it was working. I'm guessing a few HTTP gets, and if you get a 200 OK, then it's okay.
I don't think there's any automatic monitoring. It's just a mechanism by which outages can be communicated.
Oh.
Well, so I think that's where Richard was coming to. If we have something that will automatically say, hey, there's a problem, we could publish the thing,
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's like idle speculation without really sort of knowing the technical ins and outs of both systems. It just seems if we've got one landing page for our end users, in effect, that they would look at to see, hey, is everything working okay, or am I, if I'm experiencing issues, is it just me, or is there some known issue? And then if we're going to hook up a whole bunch of monitoring things, maybe there is something that we could either automatically push or make easier, make it a bit easier to flow one from one to the other. Because I think that's part of the issue we've had is, one is around resolving the issues, but then also communicating on those issues if it takes a while for those issues to be resolved. Because not everyone monitors, say, our IRC or Slack channels. And the issue with GitHub is if something like, say, our download server goes down, we get issues posted on about 4 different repositories that people aren't monitoring, and then duplicate issues in the same repositories. Part of the issue is just keeping people up to date with, yes, we acknowledge there's an issue and we're looking into it. And that's where this status page came in. Miles and I've forgotten the guy's name. Was it Matt? Matt IP4?
Yeah,
that sounds right.
Yeah.
He set this up, but I don't think any of the rest of us have really looked into it much in terms of.
The thing for me too is we don't want things going on there to be bottlenecked by the build working group either, right? Like I think the Node.js collaborators should have the ability to say, yeah, we've recognized that there's been an issue reported. We've confirmed it's actually happening. So even if like nobody from the build working group's available, we should be able to put something up that says, yeah, we know there's a download issue, right? Because that doesn't take somebody from the build working group to confirm or trigger.
That's correct.
Yeah, I don't know how the workflow works in status page, but just from the data we have, we can know, for instance, when there is a disruption in our load balancer, which could lead to 0.0001%, but visiting 0.0001% of the crowd. So we can send a webhook to status page, but then it would be some other group that perhaps could take over and say this happened or that happened. I don't know. And if there would be a larger downtime, then obviously we can step in and like do the continuous update style of reporting.
Right. Yeah, like generating something as a candidate to be put onto the status page could be useful, right? Because I think what you're saying is you may or may not know whether it's worth actually pushing the big red button or not without somebody looking at it. And
yeah, I just don't know, like if we could even do like the small disruptions and then someone can optionally fill the information. I just feel like at least what we need to do is to say, hey, we have a service disruption, right? Not just a jitter. So I guess there's a workflow to figure out there as part of it.
Right. Okay, any other things before we close out for today?
Yeah, has anyone heard from Rod about his Apple DTK request? Has that gone further anywhere?
So yeah, on that front, there is, I think, I mean, there was some concerns over where the hardware can be shipped in the short term, and that like, so that can affect where we might get it. I'm just trying to think, like Apple is sort of managing that process fairly closely. So I guess all I can really say is that there are discussions. We're looking at how we get hardware under those applications, and it's still underway. Any other things? No? Okay, well, thanks for everybody's time. We'll close out for this week and look forward to seeing everybody on GitHub between now and the next meeting.
Quick question. Did you check YouTube for any open questions there?
I have not done that. We don't tend to get very many. Let's
at least
see.
Take a leap of faith.
Oh, hold on. Now, I'm trying to see if I can see where am I. I don't think there are any, at least when I see chat, I see nothing.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, we'll see everybody next time. Thanks. Bye.